Hey explorers, and welcome back to Pip Explores. This week we're discussing beginning backpacking. So Ruby on Instagram sent me a DM asking this. Hey, so I want to start backpacking and training myself to build up to a week-long trip before the end of 2022. Do you have any tips to get started? So we're starting a backpacking series. Thanks, Ruby. So if you are just getting into backpacking, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you and talk about gear and what you need and like basics. I'm pumped. Let's do this. So when you're starting backpacking, the first pieces of gear you need are called your big three. And that is your pack, your shelter, and your sleep system. So the first thing that you need if you're going backpacking, surprising nobody, is in fact a backpack. But the thing that a lot of people get hung up on is, oh my gosh, what size, what type? I don't know anything about backpacks. Again, this is an overview video. We'll probably do more specific ones in a future video, but in general, for backpacking, you need between a 30 and a 70 liter pack. Now, part of that depends on how big of a person you are. So if you're a larger person, you need a larger sleeping bag, and therefore you're probably going to have to carry a bigger pack just so that things fit a little bit better. But you really just need a pack that's going to fit all of your gear. And if you're willing to do a smaller packs and carry less stuff, that means you can use a smaller pack, which typically is going to be cheaper. Now, you also could do internal frame, external frame, or a frameless pack. Now, if you're just starting out, I would not recommend a frameless pack because frameless packs do typically have less support for higher weight. And if you're just starting out, you're probably going to have a little bit higher of a weight until you really dial your system in. And we don't want to be in a lot of pain while backpacking, so I would recommend getting a pack that has a frame. Now, nowadays, internal frame packs are the way to go. They look sleeker, they're just kind of cooler, they don't look as old school, and typically they're lighter. Whereas an external frame is kind of more of an older school thing, and they're going to be typically, I'm using these like very broadly, heavier. But that's your choice. If you are gifted a backpack and it fits you, that's fine. But I would suggest that you make sure that whatever pack you get fits you properly. Now, if you would like somebody to help you fit, REI does offer services to fit you with backpacks inside of their store, and their people are usually very knowledgeable. But you do want to make sure that whatever pack you get, it's going to fit your body. So currently the pack that is my favorite go-to for backpacking is this pack. This is the Osprey Kite 46 liter pack. It weighs about 3.3 pounds. Now, I do have a lot of gear, so this is not my only backpacking pack, but it is my favorite. So this is my main one, and I am showing you guys what I use. This is not like, oh my gosh, you have to use this gear or anything like that. It's just giving you a starting point. This was my first backpacking pack. It has worked really well for me. It fits me really well, and it holds everything I need it to hold. So this is my current pack, and again, it comes in at 3.3 pounds. Now, the next thing you need is shelter. Now, there are a lot of different types of backpacking shelters. Your main ones are going to be a tent, a hammock, or a tarp or bivvy. Now, if you're just starting out, I would suggest go with the thing that you know, which is probably a tent. Tents are a lot more intuitive. They don't take a lot of practice to like figure out how to put together. If you're trying to decide first time tent versus hammock, I have a whole video about that, so check that out. But I would honestly, if you're just starting out and you have minimal camping experience, a tent is going to serve you well. Whatever type of shelter that you pick, you want to make sure that you fit inside of it comfortably, that you know how to set it up. I do recommend practicing with your shelter setup in lots of types of weather at home before hitting the trail, because nothing is worse than getting onto trail your first night, not knowing how to set up your tent, getting poured on, and then all of your stuff is wet your entire trip because you didn't set up your shelter correctly. So I recommend practice before you get out on the trail. But your next thing is just a shelter, somewhere to sleep, somewhere to stay dry. So currently, this is my backpacking tent. This is the Big Agnes Fly Creek 2 Classic. I got this from the REI outlet, and this weighs 2 pounds 8 ounces. This is also a 2-person tent, which personally I like to have a little bit more space in my tent. You don't have to do that. That is a personal preference. But I like to have a little bit more space for my pack to be inside with me. So this is the tent that I'm currently using. And then the last thing that you need for your big 3 is a sleep system. So this is going to vary again depending on your shelter. So if you're a hammock camper, you're going to need an underquilt and a top quilt. If you are a tent camper, you need a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag or quilt. So since my current system is with a tent, I have a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag. So I prefer an inflatable sleeping pad. This is just a personal preference. I find them to be more comfortable than closed foam cell pads, but those foam pads are typically lighter. So it is your own choice. And a foam pad also, you can't get a hole in it and be completely screwed and laying on the ground. So that's your own choice. I would say that when you are buying your sleeping pad, make sure you look at the R value. I will have a whole video about buying sleeping pads coming up soon in the next couple of weeks or months. We'll see. But that is just another thing to keep in mind when buying your sleeping pad. I use this one currently. This is the REI Stratus in a length regular, and it weighs 1 pound 5 ounces. And then this is my sleeping bag. This is the Marmot Trestles Elite 20. So this is a synthetic sleeping bag. It has about a 15-degree rating. It works really well for me. Specifically, I got this bag for a deal at an REI garage sale because REI garage sales are my jam. If you want to know my top tips for those, check that out. And that sleeping bag weighs 3 pounds 6 ounces. So now that you've got a basic idea of what all of your things need to be, you might be thinking, okay, well, how much should they weigh? I keep hearing all these things about like your weight and I have to carry this for X number of miles, and that's a good thing to be thinking about. A good rule of thumb is that your big 3 should be under 12 pounds. Now that rule of thumb changes depending on who you ask. I think 12 pounds for your big 3, it's a good place for starter people to think about, and it still gives you room to have still a pretty low base weight. I would also recommend REI does have a gear rental program. So if you are not sure what you'll like, if you want a tent or a hammock or a sleeping bag or an inflatable pad or whatever, REI does have a program where you can rent gear. So if you are, again, just getting into things and you don't know what you're going to like, rent or borrow gear from somebody that you know. It's a great way to figure out what you like before actually investing a bunch of money in it. And I am a huge fan of try before you buy, especially when it comes to gear that is so personal. Now, like I said, your big 3 should ideally be under 12 pounds. So my big 3 come in at 10 pounds 7.8 ounces, which again, some people have much lower, some people have much higher. The important thing is that you get out and hike. So whatever gear that you can use, you can make it work. But these are just some suggestions. And again, you do kind of need all 3 of these things if you are going backpacking. So if you guys have any other backpacking, camping, hiking, outdoors, whatever related questions, please let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Pip Explores. Don't forget to check out the website, pipexplores.com, and we will see you next week. Bye.